If you go to Google and look up Gauss rifles, the first non-fiction one will be the Fallout Gauss rifle. And I ran a survey on YouTube community posts asking which magnetic acceleration rifle was my audience's favorite, and they chose the Fallout Gauss rifle that came out on top. Actually, the Tau Warhammer 40k one came out on top. Yeah, however, I've noticed that people tend to vote for 40k just because they assume that 40k anything beats everything else. So I kind of use that as a control group, so people who don't have strong feelings about anything else have something that they can focus on more instead of just randomly guessing, which would throw off the data. So you can theoretically disregard that. And I say that being a Tau fan. Anyway, so I don't feel like it's a stretch to say that the Fallout Gauss rifle is one of the most popular game guns that uses magnets to throw bullets. And I used this video as an excuse to play New Vegas again, the best Fallout, until I was able to get the Gauss rifle, and it does not disappoint. It's just really satisfying. Fallout's kill cam with VATS really makes it look epic when you send people flying across the room with their head going off in the other direction. It's fun. VATS is great. It's fun, and I really like how VATS allows you to land those sweet dome shots even if you're in your 30s and can't play Fortnite competitively in any capacity. So Fallout Gauss rifle, most popular. Feel confident saying that, but is it the best railgun in gaming? Let me ask you a question. What does the Fallout Gauss rifle shoot? What comes out of the barrel? Unfortunately, we have no ballistics information on this. I can't even make a guess from the ammo because it just uses energy cells. I mean, what does it shoot, Todd Howard? Don't tell me that it just works. I want to know what it shoots. Presumably, this bit right here has a bunch of rods in it or something, and those get shot out, but you never see that part get loaded. So it's disqualified from my list of best railguns in gaming. And yes, I actually have criterias for this whole thing. Criterions. Criteriorb. Number one, it needs to use magnets to shoot things. I'm saying railgun, but it doesn't specifically need to be a railgun instead of a coil gun. And yes, there is a difference. A railgun essentially works like this homopolar motor battery science project where you have magnets and a battery, and the copper wire creates an electromagnetic field around that, and it creates force that's going in a circle. And a railgun works just like this. Instead of the force going in a circle, it's a sled being pushed on a straight line, and there's a projectile on that sled that shoots out and blows stuff up. Same principle. So like this, except significantly bigger. It's like if you had that throwing arm on the end here and like threw something with that. Meanwhile, a coil gun works with an electromagnet right here, and then a projectile is pulled into the hole around the magnet, because magnet stuff. But once it gets to about here, almost halfway, this one turns off, and then another electromagnet down the line turns on, and it pulls that projectile as well, until this thing is going at hypersonic speeds and turns something into chunky salsa. Railgun has a sled on rails, a coil gun has coils that pull a projectile. Jeez, I feel like Bill Nye. Just give me a cable TV show to talk about sci-fi. Yes, I covered the differences of these electromagnetic weapons, only to not care about them. The number 2 criteria, it needs to have ballistics data that is at least clear enough for me to guess. The Rheinmetall railgun from Cyberpunk 2020, and yes, I am pulling from all games, including tabletop and video games. That Cyberpunk weapon has projectile speed, projectile material, and projectile weight. That is perfect. That's what we need to guess. I mean, not guess, use actual science to figure out kinetic energy. It's a simple math equation with velocity and mass. But if we have speed and I have enough context clues to make an educated guess as to the size of the round, I'll take it. The Fallout Gauss rifle has none of that. But criteria number 3, it has to be something generally portable enough for a human to use. I'm excluding big spaceship mounted ones because that's a lot of numbers I don't want to deal with. And because it ties in with criteria number 4, if I'm going to be judging the best railguns in gaming, I need to figure out how fun it is. Last criteria, no space magic. Unfortunately, that rules out Mass Effect, but it just doesn't make sense to compare semi-realistic ballistics to shooting a grain of sand at the speed of light because they found some magical piece of chemistry.
This recruits is a 20-kilo ferrous slug. Feel the weight! Every 5 seconds, the main gun of an Everest-class dreadnought accelerates 1 to 1.3% of light speed.
So, let's get to our first actual magnetic acceleration pew-pew. In Starcraft, the Terran Marines make up the bulk of any human fighting force. They're often criminals who get brainwashed or, just thrown into war, so not always the most well-trained, but they are given advanced powered armor and a big gun. That gun is the C14 Impaler, a Gauss-assisted rifle that fires 8mm depleted uranium spikes at hypersonic speeds. The Gauss-assisted bit means that there's a additional gunpowder charge in there that gets the round moving, and then it gets picked up by magnetic stuff and is pushed even faster. Overall, the information we have gives us a lot to work with. An 8mm bullet with these dimensions made from depleted uranium would weigh about 472 grains. That's close to 1 ounce. And grains are the measurement that we use for bullet weight. For reference, 472 grains would be about this .458 Winchester Magnum elephant gun round. That is about 10 times as heavy as a standard .556 assault rifle round. And the Starcraft Impaler fires this at hypersonic speeds, which is pretty vague. It means anything over Mach 5, 5,626 feet per second, and under, that's it. There's no upper limit that I know of to hypersonic. So it could be anything above Mach 5. It could be Mach 2000. So let's just say that it fires it at Mach 5, the absolute minimum for easy math. That would hit with about 33,000 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, or 50% higher than 14.5 by 114. That is the largest anti-material round that we have in the 21st century human armory, and that also pushes up into anti-armor territories. And it's the round that the Halo sniper rifle uses. I should probably explain armor scales. You've got anti-personnel, regular people with maybe modern-day body armor. All of the guns that I'm going to talk about rip those to shreds easily. And then anti-material, which means vehicles or unarmored structures. Generally things that don't have armor, but are tougher targets than meat with some thin body armor. Human level armor. Then there is anti-thin armor, which I'm using to describe things like armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, things that are armored, but not tank level armor. And then we have tanks, which is a lot of armor. Starcraft's Terran Impaler is comparable to 14.5 by 114, which, like I said, sits in that kind of gray area and is capable of defeating 2 inches of steel. And the Starcraft in-game fluff says the Terran Impaler can defeat 2 inches of steel, which is surprising because it means that the game devs must have actually crunched some numbers. Maybe, or they just got lucky with a guess. And the gun is an assault rifle with a ridiculously high rate of fire of 30 rounds a second, huge magazine of 500 rounds, and while it's optimized for power armored use, there are versions made for civilians. So we've got all of that data, but what about the other factor that goes into what is the best? Are we just math nerds here? No, we're game nerds. Is it fun? In theory, this minigun rate of fire assault rifle letting off a chonker of a round, this round, should be an absolute blast, but it does not feel like that. The game treats it just like a basic assault rifle of your standard Space Marine, so it's not really that fun, but that's kind of by design. This rifle is super powerful, and it's used by soldiers in advanced powered armor. They are an incredibly potent fighting force. The basic Terran infantry unit is an anti-aircraft gun with legs, but all of your enemies are strong too. One basic Zergling is said to be capable of ripping through a vehicle. Protoss Zealot Psi Blades can cut through anything, and their energy shields can withstand the equivalent force of a modern-day anti-tank missile. Yeah, I did some math for that. And they make it with their minds. Starcraft is like they turned everything up to 11 and then we just got used to everything being at 11, so it just becomes the new normal. So no wonder the Impaler just seems like an average assault rifle, despite some really impressive ballistics. In fact, it hits about as hard as an actual railgun. Late in 1994, the US military made the CCEMG launcher, the cannon caliber electromagnetic gun launcher. This is one of the world's first attempts at using magnets to shoot things, and this railgun fired about 50 shots during its testing, with scientists meticulously gathering data about each shot. The first 11 rounds were pretty weak and revealed some flaws in the design that needed fixing. The weakest shot fired a 3.5 ounce slug, 1,513 grains, so like 3 of these. And it was at sub-hypersonic speeds, but still pretty fast, 3,185, which is about as fast as a 5.56 round. Me having both of these on the table is really convenient. However, I was planning on using a quarter-pounder from McDonald's to showcase the size, because that would be about the same weight, but I'm filming this right on top of that whole salmonella thing with McDonald's, so I don't want to risk that for a bit. Anyway, that aluminum dart hit with 34,000 foot-pounds of energy, which is almost the exact same kinetic energy as the Terran Impaler. Wait, hold on a second. Starcraft came out 4 years after that. Maybe they used that data to make a sci-fi video game realistic. That sure would have been really cool. But what would have been even cooler is if they had gotten back to me about the questions that I asked. They did not email me back. Anyway, that was intentionally the weakest shot that the US military fired for this program. Wouldn't it be absolutely horrible if this $500 million project only amounted to a basic gaming sniper rifle, the Halo one? But no, they went on to test rapid-fire capabilities, multiple rounds, and peak performance. One of the last shots, it fired through a 180-gram slug at 5,856 feet per second, over Mach 5, finally hypersonic. Faster than gunpowder as we know it, with chemistry as we know it, can throw a projectile. This round would smack a target with 212,000 foot-pounds of energy. In the 1990s, we used magnets to make a gun that hits harder than the 30mm Gauss Avenger, you know, the one on that A10 Warthog. I think that's pretty neat. Now, this wasn't the first functional railgun. That honor belongs to India and their Armament Research and Development Establishment, ARDE. They were able to achieve incredibly high speeds, over Mach 6, but with very light projectiles, you know, actually about the size of this 5.56 NATO round, but going twice as fast as this. It was fired earlier in 1994. And we've done recent testing. One fired in 2010 achieved muzzle energy of 24 million foot-pounds. Like, that is the kinetic energy of a Hellfire missile exploding on target, you know, one that's capable of defeating almost all known armor that we have in existence. But one of the flaws of these railguns, one reason why in 2020 the US railgun plans were pretty much scrapped, is they're too big, which is why I personally think it's really cool when I can pick up a magnetic acceleration gun and explode some NCR troopers in the Mojave Wasteland. That's right, let's leave the history lesson and get back to the video games. Although that was a pretty thorough crash course in all railgun history, aside from the fact that people thought about it before 1994 but didn't actually make anything that worked. Let's do Warhammer 40k next. The Imperium of Man technically has magnetic acceleration weaponry, like the accelerator autocannons used by the Primaris Vanguard Suppressor Space Marine squads. They're used to pin down enemy armored units and absolutely wreck infantry. Unfortunately, we don't have any ballistics information on those because the Imperium is allergic to knowing about how their technology works. We just know that they fire foot-long armor-piercing explosive shells, but that's too little for me to make an earnest guess with. At least for this video. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it before. But the Tau have rail rifles. While they're not exactly the most technologically advanced 40k faction, they are probably the faction with the most understanding of science as we know it, and their weapon systems are realistic-ish. They use powered armor, drones, pulse rifles, and we know that their rail rifles fire between Mach 6 and Mach 10, so let's do Mach 8 on average. We do not know specifics on the ammunition that they fire, but context clues put them at likely 4mm darts that weigh about 100 grains. That's my educated guess, and that would have them hitting with 17,000 foot-pounds of energy, so decently higher than the 13,000 of 50 BMG. That's honestly pretty mid. As for fun, I haven't even put this kill team together yet, but I've seen people who play say that you should have one railgun on your squad, sometimes even two, so people really like it. And interestingly, the Tau rail rifle is said to one-shot Astartes Terminators, which kind of implies that the Halo sniper rifle, hitting with more kinetic energy, could do that too, because that fires 14.5 by 114, which we've established hits a lot harder. Just food for thought. No, this is not turning into a Halo versus Warhammer 40k video. I'm not doing those anymore. Nah, I'm just kidding. The Stanchion rail rifle from the Halo franchise is said to punch through a foot of titanium armor. And given that it sends a likely 50 grain slug at 49,000 feet per second, that is Mach 43. Mach 43? I can believe that it can no-sell that titanium. That is hitting with over 250,000 foot-pounds of energy. That is a 10-shot anti-tank rifle that a regular meat human can use just shooting. That's as powerful as the most powerful round we fired in 1994. Logically, the UNSC should have just adopted the tech heavily scaled down for regular rifles and just made Starcraft Impalers their main battle rifle. It's really silly that they didn't. However, I do get that they did not do that because they want the humans to be underdogs and all that stuff. I understand this. Halo 4 does have a more portable railgun, but we don't have as much ballistics information on it, and it is pretty satisfying to one-shot those tough enemies, but that is not the Stanchion. Halo Wars 2 has it as a sniper upgrade, and they're pretty effective, but they just really seem like regular snipers. Halo Infinite has a Stanchion skin for the 75 caliber sniper, but, you know, it just feels like the regular sniper, because it is. You never actually play with the Stanchion. But it does sound really cool in the books. For a lesser-known railgun, the one from Crysis is pretty powerful. It fires a roughly 180 grain pellet at 9,000 feet per second, dropping 32,000 foot-pounds of energy into that target. That's anti-armor, pretty much the same as the Starcraft Impaler, nothing to shake a stick at. I don't think you even need the strength-enhancing Crysis armor to use it, but it can one-shot troops armed in that Crysis armor. You get the gun right before you come up to some enemies that were pretty tough. Before then, I took them down with either specialized explosive arrows or multiple point-blank shotgun blasts, but the Gauss rifle one-shots them. There's also these tougher enemies that were annoying mini-bosses, but now they go down in just 4 shots, so it's definitely satisfying to have that effective of a weapon. And the Crysis system lets you adapt your guns on the fly, which means you always have the right optic for the job. Overall, it's a pretty fun experience. And Cyberpunk has plenty of railguns. That's all of the tech guns from 2077. In my opinion, those are the most fun guns in the game. You can shoot through walls because they canonically do not care about armor, and you can charge up incredibly powerful shots. But unfortunately, we don't have enough solid stats to fully break those down. I can crunch the numbers on the size of the rounds, looking at the screenshot that I took, but I'd only be guessing at the speeds, which sucks because a 3-round burst that completely ignores cover from a pistol-sized weapon, that's absolutely best purely based on convenience alone. That would win this competition. It's not a competition. But the Cyberpunk Edgerunners mission kit for Cyberpunk Red drops some game stats for those guns, and they ignore cover and half of armor, but they don't provide any more lore, so we don't have any information on them. Cyberpunk Red Black Chrome has the Arasaka prototype variable assault rifle, which completely ignores a whopping 6 points of armor, which means it's only effective against leather armor, the weakest armor in the game. It provides no benefit against even basic Kevlar. I love Cyberpunk, and I've been playing since the first edition, Cyberpunk 2013, and I was playing that before it was 2013. I've worked with Cyberpunk for a series of advertisements, and that was the highlight of my career so far. So I mean this with love when I say, Artel Saurian Games, you need some errata. You need to make that Arasaka prototype variable assault rifle closer to the tech guns. Make it actually useful, because it's really not that good. It's pretty much useless for characters to use. So I was actually really curious about this, and I reached out to Jay Gray, the line manager with Artel Saurian Games, the people who make Cyberpunk. And he told me that the Arasaka prototype variable AR was just that, a prototype. It's not meant to be a gun that players use to be effective. It's more an expensive toy that didn't quite see it through all the way to production, so some people might want you to steal it or something. And I'm going to mention the 2020 Rheinmetall railgun in just a second, but it's also in Cyberpunk Red, and I asked Jay Gray as well why that one doesn't seem to do that much damage, because it can be blocked by the light armor jack, the most common armor in the game, and he essentially said that it exists like that, so that way players don't just get one-shotted. If you get shot, then it'll do damage, but it won't do super railgun damage, but it will ablate your armor, it will reduce your armor by enough so that way the next shot will completely ignore the armor. So it was kind of to give the players a bit of a failsafe instead of just making it a super weapon that can one-shot anybody, including your players. And Cyberpunk Red does have various mechanics with ablating armor, so there is even potential for use with the Arasaka prototype one, but it just requires the players reduce that armor a bit. So in a prolonged fight, it could do decently. However, the edition before Red, 2020, has a railgun and tons of ballistics information. The Rheinmetall fires a 231 grain slug at 8,000 feet per second, hitting a raging cyberpsycho with 33,000 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, and would stop most things south of a tank. It would probably take down an armored personnel carrier. It does require a specialized harness to use, or cybernetically enhanced strength, which is common in Cyberpunk, so I'm comfortable including it as portable by regular humans. Having played with it before, it is really fun. You could theoretically one-shot Atom Smasher with it. In the Rifts RPG, the Glitterboys have a railgun. The Glitterboy is kind of like if a 40k Space Marine got stranded on a post-apocalyptic planet and wandered around being a hero like a medieval knight, and they have a railgun. This magnetic accelerator fires 139 grain 5mm flechettes at a bit over 5,000 feet per second. Compared to all the others that I talked about, that seems really mediocre. You don't even really need me to do the math for those underwhelming numbers. Yay, less math. But keep in mind that I said flechettes. They fire 200 of those 5mm flechettes per shot. They throw 4 pounds of stuff at hypersonic speeds. It is easily an anti-tank shotgun. It's so powerful that this large suit of powered armor needs to anchor itself to the ground with each shot. This would transfer 2 million foot-pounds of kinetic energy into a house-sized target. So which railgun is the best? In terms of sheer power, that Rift's Boomgun. Easily. However, it doesn't exactly fit the person-portable concept that all the others do, even though I'm sure wreaking such destruction is incredibly fun. I haven't played Rifts. Second best, or first best that actually fits the spirit of this whole thing would be the Halo Stanchion. It can penetrate the most armor, shoots the fastest, absolutely ridiculous, outperforms all others in almost every aspect. But I didn't say hardest hitting or fastest shooting, I said best. Most of these are essentially sniper rifles, long-range, semi-automatic precision weapons with relatively low capacity. While sniping games sure can be fun, I think just going all out with the C14 from Starcraft would be more primal. I mean, that can hold hundreds of rounds and could empty the magazine in seconds. And it's not a specialty weapon, it's the standard issue weapon for Terran Marines. You don't need to be a trained sniper, one shot, one drop to use it. So what's the best? In my opinion, probably still the Halo Stanchion. I mean, 49,000 feet per second? You could point the crosshairs at the nose of an airplane at cruising altitude, and it will still blow it in half with almost no travel time. You wouldn't need to lead the target. But the Starcraft Impaler would be S tier as well. Two very different guns ranked highly for very different reasons. But which one is the most fun? You can't really take the Stanchion for a test shooting, and the Starcraft Impaler is almost boring by design. In terms of things that I've actually had a chance to play, that leaves Crysis and the old tabletop Cyberpunk RPG. With tabletop games, enjoyment can be incredibly variable. With one group during one session, you can roll dice for that epic cannon, and then your game master could just say, oh, you hit and do this damage, and then move on to the next player. Or it can be the most satisfying game experience ever when you use it to finally drop the big bad cyborg and save Night City. So I don't really feel comfortable saying that variability means it's the best. And that just leaves the resoundingly okay Crysis 3 Gauss rifle as the best. And I mean, it's fun, but that leaves me kind of empty. I've spent a lot of time playing these games as work, which is nice work, researching all of this ballistics information, all of these actual railguns, and crunching all these numbers. This just feels anticlimactic. Given that I'm probably most well known for my would anime swords work in real life videos, or would any of these sci-fi guns work in real life videos, I think that it's easy to say that I enjoy thinking about fictional weapons and crunching these numbers. And I cannot tell you how many experimental weapon military trials I've researched just in the last few years for videos, but also because it's fun. I like it. However, I've gotten a lot of comments that say things like, you must not be able to enjoy the game or show, and I mean, that's just not true. I think this was my only playthrough of Fallout really focusing on the guns. I was able to kind of enjoy Starfield, even though it has a caseless double-barrel shotgun. Wait, hold on. I'm getting a call. It's Todd Howard. There are magnetic acceleration weapons in Starfield? No, geez, please don't make me play it again. Oh, phew. They don't have any ballistics info, so they don't matter here. But people often look at examining media and think that that's the same as enjoying media. But for me, it's two different things. When Star Wars The Last Jedi came out, plenty of martial arts adjacent YouTubers and TikTokers analyzed the fight scene with Rey Skywalker and Kyle Solo versus the Praetorian Guards, and they tore that scene to absolute bits. But when I saw it, I just thought that it was a really cool fight scene. It was fun to watch. It looked great. They showcased new melee weapons and armor that we hadn't seen in Star Wars before. I liked it. And when I say that Hellboy's gun wouldn't be good in real life due to the design, I still absolutely love the Hellboy movies. And number 2 is possibly my favorite. It's up there in my favorite movies of all time. It is possible to enjoy things even though they have flaws or don't have a massive amount of super nerdy ballistics info. And thinking that things need to be technically perfect and enjoyable when playing or watching can just lead to the Crysis Gauss rifle being the best gaming Gauss rifle, which is potentially the one that you're least likely to have played. Maybe fun and technical don't always mesh together that well. And I think that's really important to realize, both for you and for me and people like me who examine and break down these fight scenes and weapons and stuff. We can and should enjoy media still. hopefully other people who critique things can still enjoy them like I do. So maybe it would make more sense to break this whole video down by technically the best, and then do another ranking of what I found the most enjoyable. Using ballistics, the Rift's Boomgun is clearly at the top, but I still think it's disqualified because you need armor to use it. And then the Stanchion is number 1, Cyberpunk Rheinmetall, Starcraft Impaler, Crysis Gauss Rifle, and the Tau Rail Rifle. In terms of fun, the top for me would be all Cyberpunk guns, Railguns, Tech Guns, the Tabletop in 2077. They're really powerful and open up really fun gameplay mechanics. I mean, they partially negate the cover mechanics in a partially cover-based shooter. Fallout's Gauss Rifle at number 2, just because of VATS. It's incredibly satisfying. The Starcraft Impaler at number 3, Crysis at number 4. Yeah, I said Starcraft stuff is kind of mediocre, seemingly by design, but I mean, it's fun. I enjoy using the Marines more than I enjoyed this specific bit in Crysis. And then all the rest because you can't really play with them, or I haven't. Maybe somebody with a big Tau army that's actually put together would rank the rail rifle higher because it came in clutch for them at a match. But all of this is really just my opinion on fun. I mean, the ballistics ranking is irrefutable, but fun is fun. Maybe I should play all the gaming railguns I can find, even if they don't have fancy numbers. Oh geez, Todd, I actually have to play Starfield. This would be the point in time where a more established video essayist would have talked about their Patreon and listed a big name of people who had supported them, but I don't have a Patreon. I'm not as supported as a video essayist. In fact, this is likely going to be my longest video ever, and it took a lot of work for me. It really represents a transition for me, going from focusing on short form content, which involved putting out as much really short videos as I can, to more of a focus on actually trying to enjoy the research, enjoy the process of making a video, and then putting out something longer for you all to enjoy. So instead of a list of patrons, I would like to thank you. I mean, you made it to the end of this video, which editing Marcus will probably know how long it is. I don't while I'm filming. So I appreciate you. And at the start of the video, I didn't have in mind to make it kind of about me, person who examines content, and how technically good and fun are kind of different things. But I think that's really good perspective to have, and I came across that. So far, for me, this longer content is achieving exactly what I wanted, and thank you for that. Thanks for watching.